25 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. On my way to work, there are 2 stop signs and 2 stop lights. And I leave home anywhere between 3:30 and 4:45, I guess. It depends on what I know I have to do when I get here. But anyway, it's always dark when I'm out there, and I'm on my way to work. And one morning there was quite often there a car behind me, like really close. And if I don't turn like right away, he'll blow his horn. It's like, oh, come on. It's the middle of the morning. You don't got to be... Well, one morning I was at that stop sign, and there was those 2 lights. You don't know who it is. You just see 2 lights, right? Mm-hmm. Really close. So I stop. Okay, I look. I don't really stop. I kind of roll through the stop sign. And then I get to the red light, and I look. I make sure it's safe, and he's right there behind me. I'm thinking, oh, boy, I hope this guy doesn't turn right. And I turn right, and he turns right. Oh, come on. Now he's right on my tail. I'm thinking, go around me. Don't stay there. Mm-hmm. And then the blue lights came on, Robin. And I said, oh, no. So then I pull over, right?
Yes.
And the police, whatever he was, I don't even know what he was. Police, sheriff, deputy, what do you call it? Highway patrol. I don't know what he was, to be honest with you. I didn't pay attention. But I know this. I know that police officers have a really hard job to do.
Yes.
So I'm, while it's annoying to me, and he says, you rolled through the stop sign and the stoplight. I said, yeah, I know. I thought you were one of those bullies. I thought, your lights were so close to me. Oh, let me see your license. So we go through the whole routine. And I as he's there, I'm kind of amazed, actually, that he could use technology to look me up.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool.
Some kind of a device, he was able to look me up. But anyway, so he gave me a warning. And I said to him, thank you for the job you do. I know it's a thankless job. My dad was a police officer, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So anyway, when you go out to the rivers, right, mm-hmm. you see the guys in the patrol boats, and you think, well, they've got it easy. They don't have to stop bad guys. They just have to make sure we're wearing our life vests, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I couldn't be more wrong. I couldn't be more wrong. And now I know that because Bob Lee has been with us before. He's on with us again. His books are amazing. When you read what these guys do who are on the water patrol, you just have a new respect for them. Bob H. Lee has been with us before with his first book. He's got a new book.
Backcountry Lawman.
Yes. Bad Guys, Bullets, and Boat Chases. True stories of Florida game wardens. Mr. Lee spent over 3 decades as a water patrol officer on the St. Johns River and a land patrol lieutenant in Putnam, St. Johns, and Flagler counties. He taught man tracking classes, Robin.
That's awesome.
Through the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. Oh, my gosh. Bob Lee, good morning, sir. How are you?
Hey, good morning to you, and I'm delighted to be back on your show. Thank you so much.
I'm guessing there was some day I go to work. I just hope I get through the show. You go to work. You hope you get you live.
Yeah.
When you go to work. Oh my gosh, the stuff you have to do.
Well, there's no such thing as routine patrol, right?
So
exactly.
That's what they say, and that's kind of what I try to illustrate in my most recent effort here.
Do you prefer one over the other? Do you prefer land or water?
If when I worked the water, it was a blast because it was like I had mentioned in our first interview. It was like the Wild West with all the outlaw commercial fishing. There's generally not a lot of rules. There wasn't even a rule against fleeing and attempting to elude a police officer on the water. So these guys would run for just about anything, and the only charge we had on them, if we did catch them, would be the wildlife charge, providing we could recover the evidence, because often they would toss it in the drink. So it was just kind of a wild time this first few years on the river. But when I went to land patrol, it's a little different. But I enjoyed that as well, because Putnam County, as it turned out, for me, and at least in my experiences, and many of the other guys, turned out to be a poacher's paradise. For a variety of reasons. It's one of the, has more poverty than just about any county in the state, and you couple that with the availability of, these large, long water courses, and a lot of subdivisions that were, are sparsely developed at best. It gives them a lot of access to deer and turkey where they can hunt illegally, and particularly when those properties butt up against a public wildlife management area or a private hunt lease, they kind of drop off and walk in there and hunt. So just have had a lot of experiences on the land, and particularly in Putnam. And so as a result of that, I wrote my first book, and then on my second book, I kind of write mostly outside of my experiences and put my journalism cap on and interviewed guys from one end of the state to the other and cherry-picked my stories.
Who is that on the back cover fighting the alligator?
That is Ken Hensley. Ken is, he's retired now. He spent 30 years working in Sumter County. Great guy. Absolutely one of the best woodsmen we've ever had. Can identify any plant, beginning with grasses to shrubs to native trees. Just a real expert. And so what he's doing and what he's done for years, he's teaching the recruits at our academy how to catch alligators. We put on a class, how to catch alligators. And obviously in this particular photograph, which was actually taken by the agency photographer, it got a little bit close to him because you can see him wincing there. The small ones are... Exactly. And the small ones are super quick, lightning fast. And so you've got to be very careful. And he's got about a 6 or 7 foot gator there.
Oh, my gosh.
He's catching up with the recruits to give him a demo.
So you have bad guys and you have alligators. I mean, how often was an alligator really part of your 30 years? Did it happen often?
Well, obviously, when I worked the river, I saw alligators every day. I mean, of course, there was a one night, and I recount this tale in my first book when my patrol boat sank when I was an 8-month rookie at midnight in Okawaha, and Alma left a straddle on a 6-gallon gas tank drifting out through a gauntlet of alligators. So that was an experience I will never forget. And for your listeners who have never been on Okawaha, wow, it would make a perfect backdrop for a Tarzan movie. But
right.
But generally, if they stay in the water and you stay in the boat, you'll be okay. But by the time I came on in 1977, the officers had stopped catching and relocating nuisance alligators. About the year before that, it had been there was a sea change, if you will, in how things were done, and so they brought on these contract trappers. We call them nuisance alligator trappers, and so they were hired to come on, and they get a percentage of the price of the hide and the meat when they catch these alligators and sell them, as an incentive for them to do it rather than the officers have to do it, because it just took up too much of our time. So I only got involved with maybe catching small gators at a pond behind a elementary school, or if there was a gator attack, which was really rare up in my area, something like that. But mostly they handled almost all the complaints.
Sometimes when people are poaching and in certain areas, you and your fellow game wardens have to scope out the area and maybe lie in wait for them. How do you deal with it when it's a full moon and when there's not very much brush to hide behind?
Well, if it's on the water, it's really tricky. If it's on land, you can always find some vegetation hide behind. And usually what we would do, we would go in before we would even set up at night. Let's just say we want to work a highway at night and we've got some information, or we think somebody's going to come by and try to shoot a deer. Well, we would come out in the daytime and we would cut a hole in some brush where we could back around in our vehicle, back into it and then around, so the vehicle is completely hidden. Even if somebody were to flash a Q-beam light into the vegetation, it wouldn't go through there to hit any of the reflectors on the vehicle. Now, on the water, however, it really gets tricky. And what we would try to do if you're attempting to approach somebody is this is a little hard to explain, but I always wanted to come from there's a better position to come at somebody from. It's called the downside of the moon.
Oh.
And so if you can put your target vessel between yourself and the moon, then you're on the downside of the moon. It's a little more shadow for somebody looking at me than if I were between that boat and the moon. You don't want to be on the upside of the moon. So we always would try to. There's a subtle difference there, but there is a difference. And so if you imagine it, if you had somebody standing between yourself and the moon, obviously there's going to be a better silhouette there, if you will.
Wow.
It's going to be more exposed. But if you look at it with your back to the moon, if you were to try to see a vessel coming at you,
that makes sense.
you're going to have a harder time of it.
That actually makes sense. All right. I want to ask you to tell us some of the stories that you included in the book. Let's take a little break, and we'll be right back to do that. The book is Bad Guys, Bullets, and Boat Chases, True Stories of Florida Game Wardens, told by Bob H. Lee on the phone, who spent over 3 decades as a Water Patrol officer, not to mention the work he did as a land officer in Putnam, St. Johns, and Flagler counties. We'll be right back with Bob Lee after we take the break, and we'll take the break right now. We'll be right back.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. Sunshine mixing with clouds Monday with a high of 78 on the coast, 85 inland. Partly cloudy Monday night, low 56 to 60. For Tuesday, mostly sunny, nice and warm. The afternoon high 80 on the coast, but 88 inland. For Wednesday, very warm with some sunshine, high 83 on the coast, approaching 90 inland. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Here is a WOCA news brief. A panel of Florida lawmakers is urging the Trump administration to keep offshore drilling rigs out of the eastern Gulf of Mexico. The Lake County Sheriff's Office says someone broke into one of their vehicles and stole an M16 rifle. The Speaker of the Florida House says Governor Scott should suspend Orlando State Attorney Aramis Ayala because she won't pursue the death penalty. And South Carolina defeated Florida yesterday and is headed to the Final Four. And that is your news brief from The Source.
This is Jan Marino from Palm Garden. So often when you advertise, it's hard to quantify whether your efforts are effective. But I have a success story. In my travels to medical offices, I ran across someone who recognized my voice from the radio and told me that they felt like they already knew me because of my association with WOCA. My message to you, they're out there, they're listening. Truly, radio gets results. 96.3 FM, 1370 AM, WOCA, The Source.
Tired of looking at stained carpets, dirty tile, or grout? Call Silverback Restoration, 414-5312. Make your flooring look great again. Stains, pet odors, allergies. Call Silverback Restoration, 414-5312. From serving our country to serving our community. Silverback Restoration, 414-5312. Residential and commercial. Their work is guaranteed along with your satisfaction. Check their website, silverbackrestoration.com.
Big band lovers, listen up. Monday, April 3rd at 7:30 p.m. at the Riley Arts Center in Ocala, you will be able to enjoy the best of the Stan Kenton Legacy Orchestra. Ticket prices range from $8 to $30, so come out and hear Stan's most well-known music alongside fresh new material written in the Kenton style. Again, that will be Monday, April 3rd at 7:30 p.m. What a way to start a new week.
All right, 12 minutes before 10 o'clock. It is a beautiful Monday. Hope you're doing well, and I hope you're enjoying your radio. I love these kinds of conversations. Bob H. Lee has lived a life that would be probably, I don't know how many of us would even work more than a week at this kind of a job, but he's put in decades, and now he's documenting it in a book so that we can kind of appreciate and I guess be entertained in some ways. The book is called Bad Guys, Bullets, and Boat Chases. He worked as a water patrol officer on the St. Johns River for more than 30 years, and including his work as a deputy on the ground, and then everything in between. That's I'm thinking that space in between where the river ends and the ground starts. That's where the snakes are. That's what I'm guessing that was part of it too. Thank you for waiting through the break, Bob. I wanted to ask you something about the bad guys, the people, and specifically the St. Johns River, because of the fact that the St. Johns River connects to the Atlantic Ocean. Does it make it more likely to have bad guys on boats? I can't even think of a way to say this, as opposed to the Ocklawaha River or the Withlacoochee River.
Well, I think it's the availability of the resource and the fishery there. I mean, when I began, there was a huge commercial fishery for freshwater catfish, wild-caught catfish. And there were in operation 4 wholesale fish houses just in Putnam County alone, where the product would come in and then they'd ship it out, all over the United States. Well, things have changed now, and there isn't a single wholesale fish house, mainly due to the pond race fishermen, for instance, out of Mississippi, where they might have 100,000 acres and they'll grow out whatever species of fish you want and whatever size you want. So I'm kind of going off on a little bit sideways here, but imagine your favorite seafood restaurant there in Ocala, and they want on Friday at 4:00 they want 25 pounds of 7-ounce dressed channel cat. That's what they want. They don't want a big old slab of fillet. They don't want anything smaller than that. Well, the commercial fishermen on the river, they have to take whatever they can get, and that'll be anything between 40 pounds and a 6-ounce fish that they would catch in their nets lawfully. And so after a while, they could just control the quality better. Mississippi could, for instance. And so eventually this fishery went by the wayside, and so did a lot of the outlawing activity too. Now, in the salt water, you know, I mean, you have violations there, but they're not connected, okay? Because the seaport of Jacksonville is, oh golly, I don't know, 60, 70 miles downstream, you know, because the river does run north from where I'm at here in Palatka. So any kind of violations there, it's a different marine species.
Oh, I see.
But I would also, but I would also add that the marine species, when you're dealing with them, it's a lot more money. There's a lot more value there, and that's one of the stories I write about in the book, about down in, of course, now I'm switching to Southwest Florida, down in Lee County around Sanibel and Big Pine Island, where you have these guys who are going out and unlawfully gill netting pompano. Well, pompano is it's a very tasty, buttery, creamy taste when it's baked. High-end chefs love to serve it. And so there's a lot of money in pompano. And so I write this one story down there about these two rookie game wardens that take on these two professional pompano poachers and just what turns out to be a hell-bent for leather boat chase through the mangrove jungles at 4 a.m. But in addition to the boat chase, I provide the context for what's going on with the fishery down there as well. And I remember that when I was interviewing, I interviewed 3 guys for this story, the 2 officers, and then I interviewed an investigator down there named Larry Jernstead. And here's what really kind of perked me up. When Larry told me, just as kind of an aside, he said, you know, one night I spotted this blacked out boat in the mangroves, and I went to it. And as I'm going to it, there's 2 guys in it, a smaller guy and a bigger guy, where the big guy jumps out and dives overboard and swims away. And so, and he got up there, and it's a 16-year-old kid, and the kid's dad had dove overboard and just swam off. And I found out this is fairly typical down there. A lot of people just jump out of the boat if they're chased. I mean,
oh man,
it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. But anyway, so Larry has this 16-year-old boy in a gill net filled with pompano in the boat. And the reason why the father left the boy in there is because he knows that the court system isn't going to hit him as harshly as they would an adult.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, Larry's thinking, wow, this is going to be a teachable moment. So he tells the kid, he says, you know, you really shouldn't be out here doing this. And in reply, he says, but sir, I made $15,000 last week as a crewman. And so,
wow.
And so for Larry, yeah, really. I mean, 15 grand is 16-year-old kid, right? I mean, that's the kind of money they're making, and that's why they're risking. And I say that in that story. These guys are they're ready to risk it all for that kind of money. Because when this incident occurred, it was in 2006, and now, you know, fleeing and attempting to elude a police officer, a 3rd-degree felony. It provides for forfeiture of the vessel. It's thousands and thousands of dollars of fines for the illegal gill net violation, but yet they're ready to risk all their equipment and everything, you know, so to catch these pompano. So that's kind of interesting.
I wonder how many times they got away with it, though. I mean, they must get away with it.
He got away with it a lot, you know, and he also had a huge ego. The main guy I write about, who I call Bad Bill, or William Bad Bill Jackson in there, because I changed it from the guy's real name. And he was a bad, you know, he'd won 3 professional bouts as an MMA fighter in Fort Myers. I mean, he had been involved in numerous boat chases, and this with FWC officers, but this was the first time they'd ever caught him in a boat chase. And the reason why was because it was around October, when we had these, on the full moon, when we had these huge super tides, and it flooded everywhere, and there's nowhere they could run to hide, that the game wardens couldn't follow them, okay? Because most of the time there's a lot of sandbars and shoals, and they're operating in a
Right.
what's known as a bird dog boat, where the motor is set in kind of set in the middle at amidships, and so it's not strapped to the transom, so they can go in a lot shallower water with this particular vessel than you can with a vessel with the typical construction with the outboard attached to the transom of the boat. So it was a good night for the good guys, if you will.
BobHLee.com is the website I went to, and can we get the book on the website?
Yes, you can. If you want to get an autographed copy, you don't forget. I mean, Father's Day is June 18th. I know it's out there a little ways, but it's never too soon to get a gift for your significant other. But if you go to the homepage, I've got a spot there. You can click it for autographed copy, or best price would be online, and I've got a direct link to Amazon. And you can also get it from my publisher, which would be it is the University Press of Florida, and that is UPF.com.
Okay.
And
There's a variety of choices there.
and you also have a book signing coming up. That's pretty exciting.
I do. Excuse me. Myself and 15 other authors will be at the Tangled Oaks Vineyard or Winery, which is in Grandin. It's right on Highway 100. And the date is April 15th from 12 to 3 o'clock. So in total, there'll be 16 of us there. It's going to be quite an event. Of course, they'll have wine tastings and everything. So it sounds like it's going to be a really big time, and I'm looking forward to it.
This is amazing. I'm looking at your website. A water droplet from an air conditioner shows you what direction the car was going. Wow, that's amazing.
Yes.
All right, before we say goodbye, let me let a listener say something. We've had somebody on hold for a little while now. Good morning. Thank you for waiting. You're on the air with Bob Lee.
Yes, thank you. Years ago, when I first moved to Florida, there was the gators were endangered. And do you know how low the numbers got at that point, and what the population now of the gators are?
Well, the population now is, I think it's around 1.3 or 1.4 million. I'm just talking off the top of my head. I'm just trying to remember. But you're talking about back in the 50s when they had a lot of commercial poaching for the gators, and they actually had become endangered. I do not know what the population was back then, but it wasn't very many. But they've recovered quite well. And so to the point to where beginning in 1988, they opened the season back up again. And we've had a successful hunt every year, but the goal now is not to take it down any more than 10% of the population. So it's kind of remained steady, and these alligator hunts allow the hunters to go out and harvest a lot of the big alligators, which can become problems for people.
Yeah. Thank you for the call. Appreciate the call. Bob, thank you for being on the air with us. Always fun. If you're ever in the area, we'd love to have you in the studio. Again, the book is called Bad Guys, Bullets, and Boat Chases. The website that I went to that I'm looking at right now that I'm just amazed at is BobHLee.com. And again, repeat where we can see you for the book signing.
Sure. It'll be at Tangled Oaks Vineyard. It's in Grandin on Highway 100. They have a nice website, and it's April 15th from 12 to 3, and there will be 16 authors and maybe up to 20 there. So it's going to be a heck of an event, and a lot of fun.
And what is it at? What is the venue? Is it a library?
This is at a vineyard. This is a winery.
Oh, a vineyard.
The
Okay.
Tangled Oaks.
Tangled Oaks Winery, right?
Oh, okay.
And so they call it the Spring Meet and Greet the Authors Festival. That's the title of the event.
Okay.
So it's just an opportunity for folks to come out and meet authors and sip a little wine. And
I think this book requires a beer, not a wine.
there you go.
This is a beer book.
I would agree.
Bob, thank you for being on the air with us, and thank you for what you've chosen to do with your life. You've made all of us safer, and we don't even know what you're doing out there. It's amazing. This book helps us understand maybe a lot better what you and the folks in your profession are doing. Thank you, Bob. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pat O'Neill. There are reports that the Senate Intelligence Committee wants to interview President Trump's son-in-law and aide Jared Kushner. The panel's looking into alleged Russian ties to the president's team. The president among those blaming conservative lawmakers for dooming an Obamacare replacement bill last week. Ted Poe of Texas agrees and says he's leaving the House Freedom Caucus.
Members of the